It's been more than 2 years since Netflix aired the bonus episode of The Sandman. To suit the occasion, let's put it this way. We all share the same dream of a spectacular second season. In this video, we'll share with you all we know so far about the show. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What happened in Season 1? Quick recap. So it all started in Witchcross, England in 1916. A curator of the Royal Museum, Dr. John Hathaway, played by Bill Paterson, brought the Magdalene Grimoire to an amateur mage, Roderick Burgess, played by Charles Dance. Burgess wanted to summon and compel Death to bring his elder son Randall back to life. Instead, he captured Dream, one of Death's siblings. Now Dream, aka Morpheus, Oneros, Dream Lord, Dream King, or the Sandman, played by Tom Sturridge, is the king of the dreaming realm. The world that humans venture into in their dreams. Beings of dreams and nightmares are his creations, which, if kept unchecked, could consume mankind in the waking world. Morpheus had paid a visit to the waking world to take back one of the escaped nightmares, the Corinthian, played by Boyd Holbrook. He found the Corinthian killing a human and feeding on him. He intervened and almost turned the Corinthian into sand dust, only to be summoned by Roderick. But Dream obviously couldn't bring Randall back, so he remained captive inside a glass sphere for a century. Since his captivity, encephalitis lethargica, aka the sleeping sickness, ran rampant across England and other parts of the world. The moment he was freed, the sole survivor of the sickness, Unity Kincaid, played by Sandra James Young, woke up from her slumber. Meanwhile, Morpheus finds his realm somewhat decayed, and many of the dreaming's living entities missing. His librarian-cum-assistant, Lucien, played by Vivian Achimpong, reveals that he wasn't the first one from his family of the Endless to disappear, and that's what made some of the entities feel abandoned. Morpheus then embarks on a journey to retrieve his tools, a pouch of sand, a helmet with an obvious homage to H.R. Giger's xenomorphic design of the aliens, and a ruby, which were stolen during his captivity. The search for the sand leads him to Johanna Constantine, played by Jenna Coleman, in London. She's the granddaughter of a 280-year-old lady, Mad Hetty, whose proper name is Lady Johanna Constantine. The helmet leads him to Lucifer Morningstar's realm, Hell. Interestingly, while Dream is on his way to meet Lucifer, he comes across a prisoner, Nada, played by Deborah Oyalade. The poor lady had once fallen for Dream's mortal form of an African man, Kaikul, played by Ernest Kingsley Jr. But for this, Dream banished her soul to hell for 10,000 years. That's indeed a hard price to pay. Eventually, Dream finds his helmet in the possession of Choronson, played by Munya Chawawa, a Duke of Hell. But as per the rules, Dream has to defeat him in a fight to get it back. Choronson appoints Lucifer, played by Gwendolyn Christie, as his representative in what's known as the Oldest Game, where the combatants verbally assume a position and a role to counter the opponent. It begins with Lucifer assuming the role of a prey-stalking lethal prowler, the dire wolf, and Dream counters it with a horse-mounted wolf-stabbing hunter. Eventually, she assumes the role of the anti-life darkness at the end of everything, but Dream counters it with his masterstroke of assuming the role of hope. Also, contrary to popular imagination, Lucifer is a lady here. Embarrassed by the defeat in her own realm, she threatens to kill Dream, as he's powerless in hell. But Dream reminds her that all prisoners of hell need dreams about heaven to survive, so his role is crucial for the survival of hell. Lastly, Dream is led back to the waking world in search of his ruby. The ruby, albeit slightly altered in its properties, is in the possession of John, played by David Thewlis. John is the illegitimate son of Roderick Burgess and one of his mistresses, Ethel Cripps. The younger version is played by Niamh Walsh, while the older one is played by Jolie Richardson. Roderick has asked a pregnant Ethel to get rid of the baby, after which she ran away with some money and the tools of Dream, which were earlier snatched by Roderick from the captive Dream. Later, Ethel traded the sand and the helmet for something called the Amulet of Protection, while keeping the ruby. John eventually took the ruby from her and modified it so that only he could use it. Now the ruby was capable of making dreams and nightmares come true. But John, in a twisted and cynical sense, uses the ruby to reveal the unhealed dark side of people as an attempt to create a world devoid of lies. John walks into a diner and turns people against each other. Unable to face their dark, suffering selves, they eventually kill themselves. This is when Dream finds him and tries to make him realize that this isn't the truth of mankind. But John doesn't want to stop until he's conquered the dreaming. He uses the ruby to absorb Dream and crushes it, thinking Dream is gone for good, but then in turn restores all of Dream's powers. Dream then puts John to eternal sleep. Basically, ever since childhood, John has changed towns and last names thanks to Ethel. Thus, his aversion to lies, even if it's a trauma response, is somewhat understandable. Then, we're finally introduced to Death, Dream's sister. Plus, we learned about another character, Hob Gadling, played by Ferdinand Kingsley, who, although he hasn't aged, is older than Mad Hetty. Hob's story starts way back in 1389, when Dream and Death once visited an inn and overheard him talking to his buddies about how he thinks dying is stupid. Hob had a remarkable zest for life and would rather stay alive. Death grants him his wish as an experiment. Since then, Dream has been meeting him every 100 years on the same day at the inn. Watching them meet is a delightful history lesson, to say the least. In 1589, we see Shakespeare, here called William Shakespeare, or sometimes Shaxperd, played by William Blinken, and Christopher Marlowe, played by Angus Yellowlees. At the same inn, Dream strikes a mysterious deal with Shakespeare. In 1789, young Lady Johanna Constantine, also played by Jenna Coleman, interrupts Dream and Hob's conversation. She shows them a sketch of the duo sitting at another table, made in 1689. Later, in 1889, Dream reveals that Lady Constantine undertook a task for him and succeeded admirably, perhaps explaining why she has been blessed with immortality. With that, we come to the end of the first 6 episodes. These are based on the first trade paperback collection of the Sandman comics, Preludes and Nocturnes. Episodes 7 through 10 follow the second collected volume, The Doll's House. Moving on, we're introduced to 2 other siblings of Dream, Desire, played by Mason Alexander Park, and Despair, played by Donna Preston. Desire reveals that Nada was a mistake and Roderick Burgess was a diversion. Both failed to make Dream realize that dreams are merely echoes of desire and despair. But Desire's latest plan involving a dream vortex is sure to teach him a lesson. A dream vortex is a mortal born once in every 1,000 years, capable of weakening the walls between separate dreams and creating a single volatile dream. The vortex may also blur the distinction between the dreaming and waking realms, putting humanity at risk of being consumed by the former realm. Originally, Unity Kincaid, the sole survivor of the sleeping sickness, was supposed to be the vortex of this age, but owing to Dream's untimely imprisonment and absence from his realm, her great-granddaughter Rose Walker, played by Vanesu Samunyai, aka Kiora, became the vortex. That's not all. Unity was impregnated in her dreams by none other than Desire, and Unity gave birth to her baby while asleep. Can you imagine that? Speaking of pregnancies conceived in dreams, a friend of Rose, Lita, played by Rezan Jamal, is also impregnated in her dreams by her dead husband Hector, played by Lloyd Everett, but she delivers her baby while being fully awake. Anyway, Rose essentially carries the blood of the Endless and is Dream's great-grandniece. Now, vortexes have to be killed by Dream due to the potential risk they pose to both realms, but the Endless cannot spill the blood of their own family members. This is why Desire hatched this elaborate plan. Dream initially thinks of using Rose to track 3 of his realm's missing arcana: Corinthian, Galt, a shape-shifting nightmare played by Anne Ogbomo, and Fiddler's Green, a region of the dreaming realm. He succeeds, but for more complicated reasons than just her ability to navigate through others' dreams. Rose has a 12-year-old brother, Jed, played by Eddie Karanja, who, owing to their parents' separation and eventual death, was living with his foster parents away from Rose. Although she was legally an adult by the time their parents died, she still wasn't in a position to raise him, which is why the foster agency wouldn't give her any information about Jed's current whereabouts. Meanwhile, Jed dreams of playing the role of the Sandman with his dead mother, the latter being Galt in disguise. Rose tracks Jed through his dream and finds out his whereabouts in Florida. Morpheus follows her in the dream and captures Galt. Rose also receives an all-expense-paid invitation from Unity Kincaid in London to make her acquaintance. Elsewhere, Rose and her friend Lita temporarily move to a B&B closer to Florida. This is where Lita becomes pregnant. One of the tenants at the B&B is Gilbert, played by Stephen Fry, the mortal form of the escapee Fiddler's Green. Lastly, Corinthian kills Jed's foster parents and takes Jed along to draw Rose to him. He plans to use Rose's powers as the vortex to defeat Dream, but his plan backfires, and Morpheus successfully turns him to sand dust. Later, Rose volunteers to die at Dream's hands to save her brother and friends, but that's when Lucien and Unity Kincaid intervene. Unity asks Rose to find what makes her the vortex deep within herself. Rose takes out a shining red heart-shaped crystal, the Sigil of Desire. Unity destroys the sigil and sacrifices her life as the supposed vortex to save Rose. The 10th episode ends with Lucifer declaring that to get back at Dream, she'll do something she's never done before, something that will make God absolutely livid and bring Morpheus to his knees. But behold, there's a bonus 11th episode based on the 3rd collected volume, Dream Country. This episode contains 2 stories. The first story, A Dream of 1,000 Cats, tells us about a cat whose kittens were taken away by her owners and drowned in water. She helplessly prayed to the king of cats and dreamed, seeking answers. There she met Morpheus in the form of a cat. He asked her to look into his eyes, and through this she learned that cats were once larger than humans, and humans worshipped them. This went on until one human inspired others to collectively dream of a human-ruled world, changing reality to the current state. Since that revelation, this cat has been preaching to other cats, hoping to get at least 1,000 cats to collectively dream of bringing back the feline-dominated world world. The second story, Calliope, introduces us to the titular character, played by Melisanthi Mahut. She's one of the 9 muses and a daughter of Zeus. A writer, Erasmus Fry, played by Derek Jacobi, found a scroll on how to control muses during his trip to Mount Helicon. He read it, burned it, and legally bound Calliope by uttering, "Calliope, you may call me master." She was imprisoned for 60 years and coerced into inspiring Fry to write novels, poems, and plays. In 2018, Fry traded her to Richard Maddock, played by Arthur Darvill, in exchange for a bezoar, which allegedly made the sick well. Maddock held on to her for the next 4 years and published a novel titled Eaglestones. Calliope calls out to her former husband and the father of her dead son, Orpheus, Dream. He helps free her just after he himself is freed from captivity. He curses Maddock with an abundance of ideas, so much so that Maddock has to cut his finger to write on the walls with blood. Consequently, Maddock frees Calliope, and at her insistence, Dream lifts the curse. What to expect from Season 2. Plot detail. Logically, Season 2 should cover more of the third collected volume, Dream Country, and move on to the fourth and fifth collections, Season of Mists and A Game of You, respectively. In all likelihood, we are to see Will Shakespeare, or Shakespeare, perform A Midsummer Night's Dream with his troupe for a special audience. This bit figures in an eponymous chapter in the third volume, plus it's part of the deal that Morpheus struck with him back in 1589. The fourth volume also has something exciting waiting to be brought to life on screen. As per this volume, Lita's son, who remains unnamed as of the first season, is later named Daniel. Only time will tell how the show explores the ramifications of conceiving a baby in the dreaming realm. In the same volume, there's another bit about Lucifer taking a temporary retirement from hell. This is basically where the Netflix series Lucifer begins. Anyway, if we follow the comics, we might witness Lucifer cut her wings and hand over the keys of hell to Dream. And to quote Lucifer's closing lines from the 10th episode, it is indeed something that she hasn't done before. The issues of the 6th volume, Fables and Reflections, were strangely published prior to the 5th volume, and the former includes a special story, The Song of Orpheus, where the wedding of Orpheus and the nymph Eurydice takes place. Sadly, Eurydice dies, and a heartbroken Orpheus pleads to Hades and Persephone of the underworld for her life. He convinces them by playing the lyre. They tell him that he needs to walk alone back to the upper world, assuring him that Eurydice will be following, but he's strictly forbidden from looking back to check. In other words, Orpheus's attempt at bringing Eurydice back to life costs him his life. In the 5th volume, there's a bit featuring one of Rose and Lita's B&B mates, Barbie, played by Lily Travers in the series. There, Barbie is snared by someone called the Cuckoo, who wreaks havoc in the dreaming and the waking realms. There are also speculations regarding the 2nd volume, Brief Lives, being brought to screen. Lastly, sources suggested the Corinthian might make a comeback, albeit in a reformed light, probably as a dream instead of a nightmare. This has to do with Morpheus's transformation as a character in the first season. We didn't cover this, but Galt, after being captured by Dream, made a strong point that beings change over time. Despite her preordained role as a nightmare, she chose to be a dream and help Jed in his otherwise difficult life. However, Morpheus still turned her to sand dust and banished her to 1,000 years of darkness. Cut to the end of the 10th episode, and Galt is brought back to his existence by Morpheus, this time in the form of a dream with wings. Corinthian, on the other hand, truly exploited the mortal beings of the waking world. He was designed by Morpheus as a nightmare with teeth in his eye sockets. In a pure evil turn of events, he ventured into the waking world to feed on people's eyeballs. Moments before being turned to sandust, Corinthian reveals that he fed upon people to taste what it's like to be human, but Morpheus, on the other hand, is averse to feeling something human. Overall, all these developments follow Morpheus' gradual change in emotional quotient, which is why, in Season 2, there's all the more reason to get more insights into Nada and Dream's story, and we may even see a change of heart regarding Nada's imprisonment. Dreaming of Dreams, Sandman Season 2's new players. Speculations, leaked photos, and sneak peek teasers suggest that we'll get to see all members of the Endless family, including Destiny, Delirium, and the Prodigal, aka Destruction. They are to be played by Adrian Lester, Esme Creed Miles, and Barry Sloane, respectively. Speaking of gods, the recently released behind-the-scenes video from Netflix's Geeked Week shows us a banquet being thrown by Dream for all the deities from Season of Mists. The banquet also comes with the affirmation of introducing us to Thor, Odin, and Loki, who, as per other reports, are to be played by Lawrence O'Farrane, Clive Russell, and Freddie Fox, respectively. For the Midsummer Night's Dream arc, we can expect to see King Oberon and Queen Titania of the Fairies, and Oberon's assistant, Puck. We know nothing about the actor being cast as Oberon, but the latter two are to be played by Ruta Gedmintus and Jack Gleason, respectively. The fairies of the Sandman comics universe, Nuala, who was given to Dream to serve him, and her brother cum courtier of the fairies, Plurakan, will also be there. Their roles are to be played by Anne Skelly and Douglas Booth, respectively. As part of the Song of Orpheus arc, we'll see Orpheus, Hades, Tally, a possible stand-in for Persephone, Eurydice, Bromi, and Xantho, members of the Greek religious order Maenad, who murder Orpheus on screen. They're to be played by Ruairi O'Connor, Gary Cooper, Charlotte Bate, Amber Rose Riva, Daphne Alexander, and Kathleen Steen, respectively. For the 5th volume segment, we may see the Cuckoo and Barbie's best friend, Wanda. We don't know who may be cast as the Cuckoo, but India Moore is definitely to be cast as Wanda. When will the dreams begin again? Sandman Season 2's release date. The shooting for the 2nd season came to a halt during the SAG-AFTRA and the Writers Guild of America strikes in late 2023, and the shoot is still ongoing since it resumed on November 29, 2023. Considering everything, it's safe to consider the middle of 2025 as a tentative time frame. It's also interesting to note that an interview with Mason Alexander Park, the actor who plays Desire, revealed that Netflix isn't calling its future episodes of The Sandman Season 2. There's growing speculation that Netflix may adapt to a 5 to 6 episode volume style, mimicking the comic paperback collections and their issues. Marvelous verdict. That's it for this video. We're excited to see the first official trailer on the 2nd season, or batch, whatever they're calling it. And the minute there's an important development, you'll get to hear it from us. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.